ahead, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Just keep me on my toes, it's fine. Let's give it, I don't know, another minute. You think this is really it, or do you think more minutes? This is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Probably.
perfect. Then let's start. We're gonna go around. If everyone would just introduce themselves, say who they are, something quick about them, and then why this issue is particularly important to you. And if it's not particularly important to you, then you can mention that, but maybe mention why. Okay, so I'll start. I'm Casey, and we're both in the Center for Public Deliberation. So this is our way of reaching out and trying to open discussion about things that we think are important issues. Okay, so go ahead.
What's up, guys? My name is Will. I see some familiar faces, so that's cool. Glad to see you taking 207. I did last semester. Tough class, but fun class at the same time. And personal stake in this, we all live on the same planet. This revolves energy. It's kind of a big concern, so I feel like we all kind of have some stake to some degree in this.
Yeah, I'm Demi, and I, kind of bouncing off of that, love to snowboard, and I'd like to be able to do that for the rest of my life, not just for a few more years. I'm Allison, and to be honest, I didn't really care about any of this until like last year, and then my roommate was really into it, and so she like started recycling, and so now I like have to recycle, and so I think it's really important. So.
Okay.
I'm Julie, and this issue is kind of important because I studied abroad last semester, and when Japan was hit with that huge earthquake, a lot of the students that were studying abroad in Japan, they had to come to Korea, and my mom was actually demanding that I come home, and it was just kind of really sad to see something like this happen just because of a nuclear plant exploding through. So it's just kind of important, I think, to find a different way of using energy.
Okay, I'm Tyler, and probably the most personal reason this is important to me is because of gas prices. You know, I'm tired of worrying about rising gas prices all the time. So.
I'm Colleen, and this is important to me because I think energy affects everyone, and it will be affecting everyone, and especially other generations, like my kids, my grandkids. So.
I agree. I'm Sarah, and I just kind of freaks me out that how much waste we have, and my kids and my kids' kids. It's what are they gonna do? And when it all runs out, or when all the cool and stuff runs out, it's what's next? And all the waste that we have, it's where is that gonna go? Kind of stuff. So
just to give you guys some feedback, what exactly we're doing, the Center for Public Deliberation, it's a really cool associative student program that Martine and Mia Sprain help run, and it's basically 207 is kind of the introductory class to it. So if you're kind of confused on what exactly the purpose of 207 is, it's a really cool concept because it really focuses on liberation, and that's what we do. We facilitate liberation, so that's what we're about to have. That's what we're about to jump into. So if you're wondering what the purpose of 207 was, it's to gain knowledge to help people learn how to facilitate and run deliberative discussions like we're about to have. So let's jump into it.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to start with approach 2. So if you guys want to look that over real quick. What approach 2 emphasizes is that we need our long-term dependence on fossil fuels need to change because they have huge consequences, not only on our environment, but on our economy. And at some point, we need to do something about that. So approach 2, under the what should be done category, if we can just look at that together really quick. What should be done? Substantially increase directive government investment in alternative renewable sources of energy. Sign up and abide by the Kyoto Protocol build and use more nuclear power plants, provide government support to encourage sales of alternative energy technology, such as wind power, by agreeing to purchase a certain amount, and seek out zero-emission alternatives in our personal lives, such as using electric mower to cut grass, taking public transportation, or walking instead of driving. All right, so now can we just start to open a dialogue? What are some of the things you guys see that's good about this plan?
Not using like gas products. I mean like lawn mowers. Like I know my dad, he does a pusher one sometimes just for like the exercise, but like if more people did that, it would add up and it would like take away from all the pollution. And I don't know, it's just small things like that I think would make a difference if more people did it.
Does anyone have a reaction to that? Some opponents would say that even these small things we're doing, such as your dad mowing the grass with a push mower instead of one that has emissions, they say it's not really going to matter. Like our footprint is that big. What do you guys think about that?
Isn't it more like the effort of trying to change one thing at a time instead of seeing like the instant change? Like I see, like they say that it doesn't matter, but in the long run, like if the person was to do that like their whole lives and then they touched other people to like do the same thing, I think it would at least bring us aware to the situation at hand.
I think that this is a more realistic approach because if I understand it correctly, it sounds like you can just start changing things like little by little. I mean, it sounds like a lot of stuff needs to be changed, but I think if you a couple days a week start walking to work instead, and like because last year I lived I was like 10 minutes from campus and I didn't walk, but now my apartment it's fairly close, but it's still like a good half-hour walk, but I just walk now. It's kind of nice not driving, so like that's a change. So I think that this is a little bit easier to accomplish. So.
Okay. Does anyone else maybe see some things they disagree with this plan?
I just don't think that all of these little things are going to solve the energy crisis or create enough of a change to actually make a huge difference on the footprint that we have and the damage we've already done. So it might slow it, or I think even more it's like a good thing to tell people, because a solution isn't necessarily something that every single person can really be directly involved in. This is a nice way to tell people they can be directly involved, but it's not going to solve anything, I don't think.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is maybe it is a good start, but it won't have any effect.
I kind of agree with that. I think that those little things don't really have a large impact, because if I'm not mistaken, isn't China like one of the largest producers of waste and stuff like that? And if you look at it, a large majority of their people is agricultural and rural, so they don't really have vehicles and stuff, but yet they're still the largest producer of waste. So that tells me that it's more of an industrial thing. It has to be done with the government putting laws on industry as far as waste regulations. So.
I agree. Like, I don't think that my dad like mowing the lawn with like a pusher is gonna solve anything, but I think like people just like doing small stuff, it'll get more people's attention, and then like eventually it'll be like more known issue, and then industries will be like more, I mean like the government and stuff it'll be a bigger issue to the people, and so like they'll want change, so the government will, like to please the people might want to change stuff. I don't know.
I agree with that too, though. Because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because that's also not reducing our footprint at all to not do any of
Right.
those things. And to still like live the way that we all like do and waste so much.
So maybe small things are like a form of advocacy and raising people's awareness so that we can change it on a more institutional level. Okay, so why don't we all look at our bulletin here and look under some likely trade-offs. just the first one says, people will need to buy different products, some of which may be more expensive or less convenient than present choices. Do you guys think that having these new technologies, it would benefit some people while hurting other people? And do you think that the people it would benefit and the people it would hurt, is that fair? Is that a tension of quality there?
I really strongly believe that that I guess being able to be involved in all of these changes is something that is a privilege, and that people of privilege would be able to engage in. I mean, there are certain things, but like, you know, I think that taking the bus is something that everyone can do and should do, and but you know, I think sometimes buying products from Whole Foods or from, I mean, not necessarily that has to do with energy, but places that are, I mean, they're very expensive, and to be energy efficient is incredibly pricey. So, and I think that a lot of people have, working class, have more going on than to be constantly aware of recycling. So I think that it is like a privilege, but not necessarily, you know, it doesn't have to be like that. I think the raising awareness is very important, but it's kind of hard to reach that to every level.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's one of the big turnoffs for people wanting to like get involved, is because like, why should I give more money if I'm trying to help the environment or whatever? But like she was saying with like Whole Foods and stuff, like if you want to be healthy and eat right, then sometimes those stuff that you need to eat does cost a little bit more. But if you really want to see a change, then sometimes you have to spend a little bit extra money. Now I don't think you should have to spend a godly amount of money, but you know, getting the light bulb that's more energy efficient, that's like $30 more, I feel like it's worth it.
So I'm hearing here maybe a tension between economic values and environmental values, and trying to find a balance between those two. So you brought up the point that, you know, the economic, or the light bulb that is more efficient. Do you see any other examples of small situations like that, where it's only a $3 difference or something, where we can find a balance between those two values? Anyone?
I feel like a lot of it's that people aren't just like aware of the damage like not buying the light bulb will have, you know? Like some people, like I wasn't aware of all this until like a couple years ago, but being more like aware of the issues, maybe it'll like change people's opinions on, even if it costs $3 more and they like can't afford it, if they knew the value of those $3, what it would make a difference in the future. Like I think people being aware like is important.
Yeah, but I think sometimes those $3 are to go to food or something for, you know, the kids, and I think that that's like something that, you know, maybe I personally or like, you know, my friends, maybe if we knew this stuff more, then we'd be able to spend the $3 on the extra light bulb. And but people who aren't able to go to like a university and who are, you know, on welfare might not be able to spend that $3 extra on a light bulb, which is sad, because I'm sure that they care about this stuff too, and they care about the impact it has on their kids. It's just like, if it's not affordable, their, I guess, their immediate economic condition is going to determine what, you know, they're going to get a bargain, usually, I would assume. So.
We're starting to close up time on this approach. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say about approach 2? No? Okay, great. Well, we'll move on to approach 3 then. So if we all want to take a second, if you guys, we'll give you about 30 seconds if you just want to look it over, refresh your memory. All right, to start the discussion, again, let's start with some things that we think we like about this approach.
I like the fact that it's like, even though it's extreme, that maybe this is what could be the factor like change people. You know, like if gas prices increase a godly amount, then they're not going to be driving aimlessly all around just because they're going to be more conservative about driving and other things if it's like an extreme change.
Okay, does anyone have any reaction to it, maybe negative? Maybe we can hear from some people we haven't heard from as much. Does anyone see any problems with this approach?
I feel like that, like increasing the price of gases, it's been happening for us, and I think this was written like they said 5 years ago, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But
It's not up to date.
yeah, and so like I think approach 3 is kind of like out to date. Prices have increased like exponentially since I was like maybe like 7. It was 75 cents a gas, like a gallon, and now it's what, almost $4 in some places. And no matter what, we're still gonna need gas to get around. And so I think instead of like increasing the tax on gasoline so it's less, like we're less likely to purchase it, instead of doing that, I think with the raised prices of gases, to even take $1 from those, like the income of those people who like make a profit from the gas prices, like take money from them and put it to use into actually like finding an alternative energy source, or buying more land to put like sun harvesting or sun energy harvesting farms, because like even $1 off of like every gallon is I mean I'm still willing to pay the $4, but if $1 of that goes to like buying like an alternative energy source, I'm sure people would be more willing to do it. And people who have oil and like oil rigs, I'm sure they're going to be opposed to it, but I mean they're wealthier, and I think in the long run they would appreciate that they're helping, you know, everybody. So that's just my take on an alternative to the approach 3.
Okay. Does anyone have a reaction to that?
Are you saying you don't want gas prices to raise? Or like you don't think
I'm
they
just
should?
saying, like, if gas prices raise, I would rather them raise so that it's helping to, like, helping
The tax is helping for energy.
instead of, like,
Yeah.
just trying to make us, yeah, instead of a punishment. Yeah.
That's good.
So,
I think that that's a good point because even with the whole BP thing, like a couple years ago when they had that whole incident, they still made like a ton of money. They made like $50 million even after all the debt that they had to pay, and that incident that they like killed that whole coastline. But in the same aspect, like the raising of gas prices still is like something that's gonna make people mad, I feel like, no matter what. So it's kind of a halfway point.
I think maybe more research into fuel efficient vehicles, and like if you can mainstream hybrid cars and fuel efficient vehicles, or even electric cars, I know they still make them. I think that's where our energy should be put, because it's like if we can make that an affordable option eventually, that's going to make a much bigger difference than hiking up gas prices, which is going to piss people off.
but maybe like a combination of the two wouldn't be bad.
And I think that raising gas prices would kind of discourage people from buying a car in which they're going to be relying completely on gas and from gas station. I think that like if we can develop our technology with vehicles far enough so that, you know, not using gas is an option, I think that would be a great incentive to go for that option as opposed to an actual car that's
Well, and even those cars, like a Prius it's like expensive, but it really does like pay for itself, like kind of in like the end, because you buy, I think they're like $17,000 or something like that, but you only fill up your gas tank like once, maybe twice a month, and it's like only 30 or 40 bucks.
That'd be
And-
awesome.
Yeah, and if you could produce those in like much greater numbers, or if you could kind of make the technology that's in a Prius available to all the automotive companies to kind of change what they're doing, their new models. If you could mainstream that option, it's gonna be more affordable eventually, and it's gonna create a much better approach to getting rid of this problem.
So, just to change perspectives here a little bit, if we had an economist or the owner of a car dealership, something like that, someone like that here, what do you think they might have to say about how we're discussing the auto industry, at least?
Like, think of all the vehicles that are going to go to waste if everyone switches to energy efficient. It's kind of the same concept of that cash for clunkers. Like, you just throw away all of those cars, and like, where do you think all the parts and like engines and everything that goes into those cars, like, what do you think happens to those? Like, that's not good for the environment either.
And that they need to feed their families, and that if we try and switch this over to like some sort of new Prius-based industry, then they're going to go out of business or not be able to feed their families for a long time until that becomes something that's mainstream.
I feel like they should take it as like incentive to start doing Priuses and fuel efficient cars, because like it's happening. Like gas prices have been rising, so like if they don't see the opportunity to make an energy efficient car, then it's like almost their loss, because that's the direction we're going in, So like I feel like if they saw this conversation, they'd be like, okay, we should, or this approach, they should be like, we need to make something that's gonna please our customers, and that's fuel efficient cars.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I think if I was like an economist, I'd also be kind of more willing to do something like what we're talking about, because if we do change the automotive industry, we're providing jobs, we're providing like a new means of life for a lot of people, especially with like the automotive crisis that happened a couple of years ago. And it's also going to create opportunity for a lot of Americans to get other kinds of jobs, like building the farms, or and it's not going to take away from like the 1%, like upper class people, that much, because it's really just the Americans paying the money, and then just a little bit of it is going to a different alternative source. So as an economist, I think I would not disagree with that.
Now, we've had a really good discussion so far on the automotive industry, but another big point under Approach 3 is focused on wind power. So let's see which one talks about the wind power.
Wasn't it 2?
That was Approach 2. You're right. Thank you.
We did our homework.
All right, good. Well, we're out of time with this one anyway. Does anyone have any last things that they'd like to say about Approach 2? Do you have some? No? Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you guys for that discussion. That was great.
Yeah, I'll do Approach 1. So Approach 1, as you can tell from the placemat, is just to reduce our dependency upon foreign oil. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of read that first sentence or two. And it says, the crux of this nation's energy problem is that we're too dependent upon energy and energy resources from unstable, unreliable, and often hostile nations. And this can be a threat to our national security. So if you want to go ahead and kind of take the time and look at the what should be done section, I'll give you a moment or two to kind of look that up, and then we'll come back and address what we kind of like about this approach. All right, so are there any things from Approach 1 that you particularly like? Something that stands off the page at you?
I definitely like that it discourages, or not really discourages, but prevents the funding of terrorism and other things like that.
And kind of bring everything more like in country, not to export so much to where they different.
Right, so kind of keeping it back home on our soil, we're going to take care of ourselves, not going to be dependent upon, you know, foreign countries for us to do that.
I feel like we need to make changes as like a world, not just on a country basis. I feel like everyone needs to come to a consensus that we need to make changes, even if it's off our country.
I like that it wants us to look for other sources of fossil fuels. Like, I think that's good, but like you were saying, you know, I think this is like a worldly thing, and it might make people mad if we, I don't think we want to not make allies with people just over this. And, you know, if we end up finding like a good source or something, I feel like other countries will want that from us as well, and why wouldn't we want to share that with them?
So what I'm hearing is it's not really an American problem per se, it's more of a worldwide problem that the world should kind of reduce their entire dependency upon foreign oil.
And maybe if we make a start, then other countries will want to follow us, because everyone loves us. Just kidding. At all.
Now, one of the biggest issues with this approach, what critics say, is that, okay, let's start exploring our options here at home, and that's gonna require drilling, that's gonna require mining, degradations to the landscape that can occur because of those things. So my kind of point is it worth it to destroy some of these natural habitats, or what are some of your thoughts on kind of the balance between those?
I feel like it's kind of counterproductive to ruin all these natural habitats. One, because it's so disruptive to the animals there. Also, like economically standing, a lot of every nation's income is through tourism. If we get rid of those pristine, natural, beautiful habitats, we're going to lose a lot of tourism, which means a downturn in economy, which means that we're going to be more dependent on other nations anyways. So I would feel like I'd rather be dependent now on other nations for like the fuel while looking for alternative sources, so that we don't have to like ruin these places where we can provide our own energy.
Any thoughts about that?
Glad you all agree. Yes.
Now, there is a point in this approach that says that we don't have a real dependency on foreign oil, that a lot of our oil comes from countries just north and south of us, to Mexico and Canada. So what would you say to someone who says that we don't even need to do this?
I think, okay, I don't know, this is just kind of guessing. I just kind of heard this off chance that because people were talking about this earlier too, but they were talking about like the oil that comes up from Mexico, it's kind of supporting all the crime, the bad politics down there, and so we're supporting kind of like a terrorism down there too, so it's not like ethically wise for us to support that kind of corruption. So ethically standing, I don't think it's good to keep buying oil from Mexico.
So even what we think is clean oil really isn't clean oil, it's just as bloody and dirty as the rest of the food. Another interesting point to this approach brings up that we've been using fossil fuels here on our American soil for years, and they have consequences as well. You know, it comes back to the point is, do you think that we have enough resources here for our country to be able to sustain our our energy needs without foreign oil? Internet experts.
I think we do. It's just a matter of, like you said, do we want to destroy all our natural habitats and stuff? But I think if push came to shove, then we definitely would have enough home oil at home to support ourselves for quite a while.
I guess like what I'm wondering is like, for how long? Fossil fuels are only, you know, it's a finite amount. We're still, the problem is finding different energy sources because we only have so much in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's also, I feel like this whole issue is just kind of like a sidestep of what the real problem is, you know, because we're going to eventually run out anyway. It doesn't matter where we drill, it's going to end up becoming very scarce and ultimately inefficient to keep using it.
So what I'm hearing is that, you know, eventually, no matter where, whether it's abroad or here, you know, oil will run out because it is, you know, a natural resource. We can deplete that, and so that this approach, you know, is not the complete solution. That it's going to take other factors in regards to renewable energy and alternative energy. So is that what you're getting at? That kind of brings us up on our time for approach one. Anybody have any final opinions or final thoughts on approach one?
All right. Well, we thank you guys for being here. And I know this is kind of a hard subject because we all aren't experts on it, and we don't know exactly what we're talking about, but these are important things and important issues that we need to start thinking about. So just opening up a dialogue like this hopefully will get you thinking about it and prepared to talk about it with other people. So we really appreciate you being here and just going through this process with us.
And actually talking, that helps.
Yeah, that really helps.
Especially when I have a month of the gym.
So that camera isn't recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
He's under seat, it's okay. I'm running something. I had a rhetoric paper due. That's where my focus was.
Love that class. Love it.
Yeah, my first think piece was due, and I severely underestimated.
Yep, I did too.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Not easy.
Have you guys seen this
I did too.
No.
We're actually,
I get
this is
this
just our
for
first
Amazon.
semester doing it, so
Yeah.
this is the first forum we've actually run, so.
Oh,
I think it went well.
Hopefully it went well.
oh yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Talking, awesome.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, the other thing we're supposed to tell you, they probably told you in class, but these pieces of paper, your reflections or your question responses, those are due next class, so please just have us filled out.
Is this kind of going to be what our final, like the last part of 207 is going to be like? Where we sit with our group and we kind of do this discussion?
Kind of, yeah. I was really confused honestly in 207 as to like what exactly the end goal was. And the end goal is to create whatever your issue is, to create approaches, sit down and be able to talk with other people and work through them. And not every approach is supposed to be a solution, but it's supposed to just have a dialogue and see, you know,